Well, I want to bring in someone who is one of the favorite eSquared speakers we've ever had here on the West Coast. Now, we've had a lot of great presenters, don't want to knock anybody, but when this one presenter came and did a full day for us in San Jose and in Irvine, we got more feedback about, wow, there was so much great practical stuff. So I want to bring on in a moment Doug Parks. Doug is a former minister, served as a minister, an executive minister. He's also worked in business. But Doug launched something along with Bart Rendell called Intentional Churches. They just wrote a book and released it called Intentional Churches. It is about an operating system for your church. Some of you may remember hearing Doug at an eSquared that we hosted. Was that last year, Tammy? I want to say Doug's here. Yeah, maybe 2 years ago. But Doug and his company is centered, wait for it, in Las Vegas, Nevada. Oh yeah, love that. So he's going to come and talk a little bit about strategically where we are with churches. Doug, thank you so much for zooming in from Las Vegas.
Thanks, Jeff. The city of light and grace.
Sorry about that. Doug, how many years has Intentional Churches been running?
Yes, the ministry is about 7 years old, but we've been doing this work now for almost 11 years. So there's quite a bit of history in it.
And how many churches are you working with these days?
Right now, we're about 80 active churches, but over our history, I think we're over 300 churches that we've been partnered with.
That's fantastic. Now, I know you work with churches of all sizes, so your comments will relate to the church of 100 to the 10,000. You're working with some multi-site churches as well as single site, and some churches of Christ as well as independent Christian churches. Am I right about those things?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Well, thank you for taking time. We're excited about the book. Is it on Amazon?
It is. It is on Amazon.
Okay. So if somebody said, what's this book about? Give me 3 sentences. What would you tell them?
It is a practical tool that really outlines, first off, foundationally, how we as church leaders strip everything back to the basics of Great Commission accomplishment and activities in our churches, and then rebuild the structure and the organization of our church around those principles so that they're more aligned than they were before. So it's a very practical tool. You could actually pick it up, get some of the philosophical background behind what we call it Church OS is, and then you could actually start using it with your team to start having the right strategic conversations.
So Church OS actually is not an app you're selling. It doesn't have much to do with technology, although it might impact the way we use it, but it's something much deeper than that.
That's right. It's we refer to it as a biblically based church leadership operating system. So if you think about an operating system for your phone or your computer, the operating system's job is that we're all speaking the same language. Like when we say the word evangelism, for instance, or discipleship, that's a hot button word. That it doesn't literally mean 10 different things to 10 different people. We're all using the same wording the same way, just like your operating system is. And your operating system keeps you organized so that you can be efficient and get to the right next things.
Well, I love your title for what you're going to share, 5 Practical Innovations from the Frontlines of Ministry. So in this in-between time from where we're online but thinking about opening up but not sure, how can we strategically be prepared for the future? If you could do that in the next 5 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, Jeff, I have a lot to share. So I'm going to do a couple things, and then you cut me off when you.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I think I wanted to start. I really appreciated Connie's comments at the psychological, emotional level, and spiritual level where we're all at. But I wanted to back us up to the 30,000-foot view. I believe it was Mike Wright that just spoke,
yes.
said this thing. And if you go back into history, some of the greatest movements of God came around pandemics, like in, I think it was called the Cyprian plague in 200, 300 AD, right. That affected the Roman Empire. Literally, the church, because it loved and served and became the heartbeat of people, I think the estimates are the number of Christians on the planet grew by 6 to 10 times over about a 50 to 100-year period or something like that. So, and there are many of those throughout history. So I want to say to every minister who's on, I know it's hard. I know we're all grieving, but this is a great, great opportune time for the gospel right now. And a couple of thoughts we would challenge you with from IC, from Intentional Churches. Number one is that if you've heard the invest and invite strategy, meaning getting your 99 from Luke 15, your people of your church, investing in their ones, those who are far from God, and then inviting them into Christ, to Jesus, to their life, to church, all those things. I would argue the invest part of the equation is being done in a way that our generation has never seen before. If your neighborhood's like my neighborhood, I probably have met 15 new neighbors on the nightly walk. I've had social distance conversations, and we are actually strategizing as a family and praying about how we serve our neighborhood here. I think that's happening all over our nation and all over the world right now, that the church is actually rising up, even though we can't meet. I think this is something that we as ministers and leaders, we really have to be aware of, because a part of our job is now to steward that kinetic energy that the church is creating in our community. So that'd be number one. The second thing I would really challenge you to do is use this principle of constraint thinking to innovate around. The bottom line, no one knows when whatever the new normal is going to be is going to return. It's going to be different for all of us, depending upon where you're at. And who knows? So in this moment as church leaders, let's use constraint thinking. What I mean by that is get more and more conversations in your leadership teams around the idea of, what if we had to deliver Great Commission activity digitally for the next 6 months or through the end of the year? Now, we may not have to do that, but just asking that question in your teams will start spurring maybe some ideas on how to do things differently going forward. So the idea of constraint thinking, what would have to be true for us to do Great Commission accomplishment? Because Jeff, as far as I checked, the Great Commission did not change because of coronavirus. We are still mandated to go make more and better disciples. It's just our methodology has to change. And so we're all being challenged on many fronts there. And then the last thing before I get into a download on a very nuts and bolts tool to help you guys is, I already mentioned this a little, but remember, just like we came into the pandemic as a church and nation in tears, like at one point, if you were in Seattle, Washington versus South Dakota, it was a completely different experience. You rest assured, we, as you guys have mentioned, we're going to come back out of it in tears, not T-I-E-R-S.
I was just going to ask that question.
T-E-A-R-S. And so we need to be aware of that as we're encouraging and praying for one another, that people are going to be in different spots as far as church leadership. Okay, if you guys will throw up the slide. This is one of our tools inside of Church OS. You would find this in the book, an explanation of how to use this tool. And it's called, we called it the engagement pathway. And so it's not anything new in terms of, just think assimilation or connection. How do we take someone who's far from God, a one in our church body, and connect them to Jesus, to us, and to others? And that's what this tool is hoping to do for you. So we start at the very top. I'm just going to give a brief orientation and give some real life examples of things you could be doing in your church as well. So, and one of the caveats is, I know the technology capability of everyone on the call are at varying levels. You may be, we can barely record it and broadcast, or we have the ability to be navigating social media. So we need to understand that spectrum, but any church, no matter what size or what technology level, could use this kind of thinking to start shaping strategy so that you're more and more aligned in this digital expression of church right now. So one of my recommendations is that this design of how we connect people right now should be simple, simple, simple. And it's almost so simplistic, the way in which we need to think about it, that it's very difficult. What I mean by this is, in your services, whether you're recording or you're doing live, simply asking, is anyone watching accepting Jesus as their Savior right now? And then having a way for them to respond so you can connect with them through a text or a comment. Those things really matter right now, that are simplistic, as opposed to, you go back to the Welcome Center and get a connection card, and you feel, all these other strategies we have when we're physical. Simple, very important. The other recommendation is, when you're designing this, speed is key. Entrepreneur named Guy Kawasaki, he has this motto for the entrepreneur: just ship something. So we're telling church leaders, speed matters right now. So you may not have it 100% figured out, but get these connection strategies launched so that you can learn. Because in this kind of environment, he who learns fastest achieves the most Great Commission accomplishment. And the second part of speed is what used to take sometimes weeks, if not months, for someone to come to the faith and then connect to your church. We're seeing in churches now can happen within hours, that you can literally have somebody in a small group, because online and digitally things are moving much quicker in the way people connect. So go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say that overwhelms me, but then I realized I filled in at Shepherd Church, Christian church here in the LA area. And I said, how do we handle invitations when we're doing this online? And they said, oh, there's going to be a number at the bottom of the screen. You simply say, would you text Jesus to that number, just the word Jesus? And it immediately goes to a file that is, pastors are calling them literally before the sermon is over. There are Christians and team members who are calling these folks and saying, okay, let's talk about this. Have you been baptized? Where are you in your walk? And that's just crazy, but also crazy cool. Doug, anything else you'd say about that connection point there?
Yeah, we've seen some very creative ideas out there that are multifaceted. So I'm sorry, if you could put up the slide again, I'll just talk about one. This is an example of a digital engagement pathway from the Crossings Christian Church here in Las Vegas. And in that connection box that you see there, Discover RSVP is like their new member class, or their starting point or getting started class. They are actively searching for people in the service. They have volunteers actively searching for people who are unconnected in all the platforms. You may only be broadcasting on your church website. Others may be on YouTube, Facebook. They're actively searching for people, and they're trying to get them to do a Discover class, or a starting point new member class, RSVP. When they do that RSVP, and I think last week they had 25 that did this, 25 people, they are delivering what in Vegas is very famous, a crumble cookie, to the house of the people who RSVP'd, with Uber and Lyft drivers who have been out of work or less in work here in Las Vegas. So they're doing some evangelistic push. They're doing a very old school, we're delivering a gift right to their doorstep. And then the number of people who are showing up to their Discover environment is very expanded from what it was before. A couple other ideas I want to make sure I hit. At the top of the funnel, your relational reach zone is what we call it, but it's nothing more than the social and relational networks of your 99. It's the people they know. That's expanded now, because right now, your church has no walls, no roads, no doors. It's literally somebody in Africa could start attending your church if they had an internet connection. And so in that reach zone, we've seen such creativity in churches. We have a church in upstate New York, which is very much locked down. They are planning as if there may not be services together until January 21. I just had a minister tell me this week. And they're being creative, though. They equipped their church people with yard signs, and they encouraged them to write their phone number on it. And then, here's how I could help if you needed help, and put it in their yard. So as their neighbors walk by, they could call. They've had numbers of connections between neighbors where the church is delivering compassion. One last one that I love, an idea that's emerging here in Vegas, is we're getting ready to do it in my family, is we are going to hire a Hawaiian ice truck, which those are still essential and legal. You can still have food trucks here as long as they're
So
social.
Hawaiian ice is essential. It's good to know that.
It is essential. In our neighborhood, and my kids are designing flyers where we're going to pay for like the first 25 kids, as long as they social distance, who want to come and get a Hawaiian ice thing. And we've seen massive feedback from families and communities when you're doing these kind of evangelistic ideas out there. I probably could go on for a long time, Jeff, but I'm going to send it back to you. Do you have
Bottom line is you're saying love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Oh.
So I would get a donut truck for our neighborhood, and I'm going to work on that today.
It's great. Love it.
So as you work your way down that funnel, can you just kind of walk us down that, especially with what's happening right now?
Yeah. So sorry, Tammy. So at the top is your relational reach zone, and with this would be a more digitally advanced church. They're using social media shares, which, by the way, those Lyft and Uber drivers and families who are receiving those cookies are posting like crazy to social media, which is now creating buzz around the crossing in new ways. And then watch parties where people are digitally inviting their friends to watch a church service. I saw that in the chat. Somebody suggested that. We would highly encourage it. That church online, however you're delivering it, you need to think about what is the next step out of that, that they're not just attending. One of the most important things we're learning, if you are more digitally advanced, don't confuse interactions, which would be likes and hearts and those kinds of things, versus engagement. Engagement is when we start having communication back and forth, we get comments, and we're designing strategies, which this is a new day for the church, where we have traditionally delivered things in a pipeline fashion, one-way communication. Here's content, here's teaching, here's preaching. In this digital environment, the more you can get two-way communication, where you've taught on a passage of scripture, you've challenged people to do what Jesus told them to do, and now you have them tell their story back through social media, through your platform, through your service hosts. That is one of the most effective things we're seeing out there, that a conversation is happening more around your preaching and teaching than traditionally you would have in your auditorium or sanctuary. Out of the church online, the crossing really focuses on contact. They use a chat room. They have a digital lobby that they're using. And again, they have active volunteers on the hunt for people who may be unconnected. When they start to connect is the Discover RSVP. I talked about the personal gift, and they're also doing Facebook Connect if you're on that platform. And then Community Discover Lounge, forgive us, we're in Vegas, so they design things for the thing. But think of it as Discover Class, if that is offensive to you. Again, this is one of the principles we're being taught by the Frontlines churches, is that, who are innovating, is that you should not digitally just mimic or mirror what you were doing live. Digital is different, as we're all learning over this run. And so you need to digitally model. And so their Discover class changed. It's only a 45-minute session. They're teaching values in it. They're breaking out into Zoom rooms. There's a lot of volunteers there who are forming connections, and then they're pushing them into a Zoom group. The churches we're seeing be successful at this, the Zoom groups are starting within 48 to 72 hours. So we're not waiting another week. We're not waiting even 5 days, but we're actually going to try to get people together. And by the way, if you use small groups, this is one of the great innovations I don't believe is going to go away, is we figured out the childcare issue with our small groups, because we have tons and tons of Zoom groups happening at 8 o'clock at night, where the kids are in bed already, and now adults can have teaching and conversation and prayer together in fellowship. And so, again, I led off with, we have to see this as a time of innovation along the way. And then, of course, the church needs to love its community. Our encouragement to you is as you're thinking about adding back, whatever it may be, do not get ahead of your community. So for us, we're really paying attention to what the schools are doing, because we are trying to reach our community. And if we open up before the rest of the community is open, you really are inviting blowback from the people you're trying to evangelize and reach. So, yeah. And so, but this community response idea of loving our neighborhoods and loving our community and providing things like we're seeing everything from Chromebooks for foster families because they're lower income kids in school districts. Whatever you can do in your community, and it's varied in every community, to respond, not just institutionally, meaning your church is providing this, but anything you can do like the yard sign where you encourage your 99, your congregants to directly deliver help to their neighbors and friends, that's even better. If we can get the 99 connected to their ones in their community, that is a home run in any way you can think about it. So,
and it is so exciting to hear what you're talking about. Let me ask you, if you would, to dial it back from the crossings to a church that may be just doing Zoom or maybe just doing, say, a recorded sermon that they watch. Not yet, please.
Yeah, so ideas, I would say the ideas that anyone could do for their church, even if you weren't very technologically advanced. The cookie idea delivered, or whatever it may be in your community that everybody loves. The yard sign idea is an easy thing. You just, as a church, buy some yard signs, social distance to have them pick up, and just outline a one-pager that instructs your people, here's what you could do. I think
tell us a minute about the content on the yard sign. That was a question that came in. What did the yard sign say?
Well, first, think about what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the people of the church to help their neighbors. So anything you put on that yard sign or instruct them to put on there should facilitate that. So phone number, do you need help? Here are the things I could provide, a list and inventory. We have toilet paper, which isn't as big a deal, but for a while it was a big deal. Or if you're elderly and you need help with grocery shopping or various needs of whatever you as a family could provide. And I would say even your instruction sheet could, to a family, say, sit down for 10 minutes and brainstorm with your kids about how we could help our neighbors. Those are the kind of things I would put on the yard sign.
Great. So keep going. I know that in congregations that use Zoom, may be unaware of how powerful that chat line is and having members tuned in, but the only way you're going to get the folks there is by getting them the Zoom link. Where all are people inviting and passing out Zoom links?
We've seen just about everywhere. If I were in your church and you are not as technologically advanced and you don't even understand fully Zoom, I would enlist some younger, if you have some 20-something or even teenagers, to get on a Zoom task force team to equip your elderly and teach them. They could literally do online. I've done it with my 80-year-old father-in-law, who's a preacher in Ohio, which we had to tell him, you can't congregate anymore. He kept wanting to have everybody come in. He got on Zoom with the entire family, and it was just sweet. You know, it took a while and it was clunky, and he's like, where do I talk? But it was sweet. And so I just want to encourage you, you have help in your churches of people who understand Zoom, and they can help translate it if you have elderly involved, and start all kinds of Zoom groups.
And Summit, who may be one level up from there, Doug, is, what's it called? Church Online, the platform that was offered by churchtv.net.
Yeah, Life Church.
Isn't that right, Craig Rochelle? Can you say just 2 sentences about that?
Oh, it's a great platform. They had some issues early on, but it's the platform was designed to have interactivity. When I said you want to promote engagement right now, engagement is king, and the lifechurch.tv platform has engagement built in. So you're not only broadcasting your service, and I believe they've added or are adding linkages then into other platforms where you can actually have volunteers tracking. One of the things we're learning is churched people, more your 99 or people who once attended your church, are watching through your website. If you're able to get YouTube or Facebook broadcasts of your services up, more and more of your evangelistic push are on those platforms. So, LifeChurch.tv's platform, the ability to have that communication and interaction, and I believe they're now able to, there's bridges being built back and forth between platforms with it. And I think we're just going to continue to see innovation on the technology side, that if you're tech savvy, you can keep advancing.
Yeah. Any creative thoughts about how to share that? I mean, I don't know if people are handing people pieces of paper in the grocery store or putting it on the bumper of their car. Any other creative ideas about that?
It's back to basics. So there's all kinds of creativity out there like that, advertising our church or our church services. But right now in this moment, you have a chance to disciple your church people in a way by just getting them to courageously risk invitation with their neighbors, because they're still, and their families, they're still connected there. And I would argue our ones are more hungry for the gospel and what God has to say, the message of hope and the rock of Christ, than they have been in our generation. So anything we could do, it's I know it's not, sometimes we get addicted in the church to the latest, greatest idea and new innovations and all these things. This one's kind of back to the basics, guys. Your people are already having the conversation. You just need to help them bring intentionality to it. Intentionality.
Well, I know that YouTube is seeing a skyrocket in people that are watching. And you guys, ministers, please know this. If you have an iPhone and a junior higher, you have everything that you need, because they can record your sermon, edit it together, post it up to YouTube, and then your members can share it via Facebook or any other social media platform. So please don't think that you've got to have, lights, camera in the Pepperdine studio. Please. I'm using this because it's open. Nobody's here. But what we want to underline with what Doug has said, no matter where your church is at on the line, no matter what kind of technology you have or don't have, the Great Commission has not changed. So Doug, when it comes to intentional churches in that great new book, if this were Oprah, I'd say, everybody's going to get a copy of Doug's book. So one, where can they get a copy of your book? And can we give away one copy?
Absolutely. How about you tell me how many you want to give away? I see Fate is over there goading me to give it away to everybody. So thank you, Fate, brother. So you can go to Amazon. Jeff, we can talk about distributing and get that list. But I do want to say one thing. We are coming out next week with a guide, an online guide to building your digital engagement pathway that has tips, guidelines, some videos, an interview with Lee Coate at the Crossing, who created this. And so we'll share that link with you. You could either do one of two things. You can go to our website, click on contact to fill out the form and just put Pepperdine in it. And then we'll make sure you get the link when it's there, or we can for sure send it to you guys, Jeff, and you distribute as you see.
Great. Well, Doug, thank you so much for what you're doing. Intentional Churches is blessing churches. You've blessed my life. I don't know if Bart is actually on the call or not. I saw his name in there, whether you may be using his account. But what you two have done, and God has used you to do, has blessed so many folks. Well, thank you for what you do, and we'll pray for you and your family and the evangelism that I know will be taking place there. God bless, Doug. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Doug was talking about resources. Let me say a couple of words about some resources that we're going to be putting up for you. First off, and Doug, we're sending out the slide that you had. I'm hoping that's okay. I know it is.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
Thanks. Our church relations resource page, which you can find online if you go to the Pepperdine website, but if you just Google Pepperdine Church Relations, it'll take you there, has a number of different articles and videos. We're going to be posting later this week or maybe next week 12 articles and tools for reopening your church. And let me just mention one that you can look up. Lifeway has done a great thing, the company, by preparing a congregational tool. It is a survey you can use with your church online about reopening, with a bunch of great questions so that they can begin to be involved. And it's not, well, the preacher decided or the elder decided, but they can be part of the process. And again, that's available from Lifeway, and there'll be a link for that free tool that's online at the Pepperdine Church Relations resource page within the next few days, Lord willing. Also, we have offered, as many of you know, sermons, some of them taped right here, during this time for congregations who may not have a digital footprint. We're happy to have you utilize those. All of our Harbor from 2019, 2018, 2017, all those speakers, information is there, not information, but rather their classes as videos. So let me encourage you, reach out and borrow. As a preacher, I am a big believer in recycling. I have recycled in my ministry for 30 years. And those of you who are out there saying, amen, I know. So we want to give you some things that you can recycle as well and share.